President Duterte signs Executive Order 21, allowing the Food and Drug Administration to grant emergency use authorization to drug and vaccine makers. The order allows the approval of use of a vaccine within a month instead of the current 6-month review. FDA Director General Eric Domingo earlier assured the public that safety will not be compromised by strengthening the vaccine monitoring process. We go above and beyond the headlines with Dr. Jaime Montoya. He is the Executive Director of the Science Department's Philippine Council for Health, Research and Development. Good evening, Dr. Montoya. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, good evening.
So, Dr. Montoya, this EO should essentially cut the processing time for the approval of the COVID vaccines here. Now, how do you think this will improve the country's timetable on the vaccination?
Well, it will have a significant impact on the current regulation that we have, that for a product to be approved by the FDA, it has to be able to show proof that the clinical phase 3 clinical trials have all been finished and the data have all been analyzed. The EUA will actually allow companies to analyze at least half of the population included in the trial with at least 2-month safety follow-up. This can already be submitted to their FDA, to their home country, and after which, if they are given approval on emergency use authorization, then it can now be submitted for EUA also in other countries that have this mechanism in place, like the Philippines.
Right. So, Dr. Montoya, can experts or can we now conduct or start the vaccinations by first quarter next year here in the country?
Well, as I said, that is a possibility if assuming the vaccine developers by this time have already submitted their applications for emergency use authority. When that is issued, then they can now apply for emergency use authorization in other countries, such as the Philippines, because we already have that mechanism in place. It was just signed today by the President in the form of an executive order.
All right, Dr. Montoya, the government is eyeing administering vaccines from different manufacturers to at least 70 million Filipinos within 3 to 5 years. So is this timetable realistic? And can this emergency use authorization help in widening the scope of those who can receive the vaccine?
Yeah, the 3 to 5 year plan is actually a realistic estimate because while there are no vaccines yet approved by any regulatory agency, we cannot anticipate early availability of vaccines as of this time. But when a vaccine has already been given an EUA by a country such as the US, maybe Europe, UK, Australia, Canada, these are recognized by our FDA. So it can actually facilitate the approval also in the Philippines, by which time we can already secure these vaccines because they're already considered as approved and can be marketed. And that can actually move our securing the vaccines by ahead by at least 2 to 3 months.
Yes.
But that is, of course, assuming that the supplies are there. And that is presently being negotiated also by the procurement team in the Philippines.
Yes. So, Dr. Montoya, you're saying a best case scenario, procuring the vaccines will be as early as maybe March next year?
When you say procurement, we are basing it on the assumption that the product has already been approved by our FDA, either through a regulatory approval process, the regular process, or by EUA.
Okay, so Dr. Montoya, the UK has approved Pfizer's COVID vaccine, and this will be used as early as next week. Now, how will this impact the Philippines' possible procurement of the vaccines from Pfizer?
Well, that is still subject to negotiation. I know for a fact that Pfizer is one of the companies and vaccine developers that our procurement team has been negotiating with. I cannot disclose whether this will actually be available by next year or not. That is subject to negotiations between Pfizer and our procurement team, led by Secretary Galvez.
Doctor, are we still eyeing 17 possible sources of vaccines from various countries? Is this correct? And now 9 of these companies are on their third phase clinical trials already?
Yes, we are actually considering all possible vaccine developers and vaccines, especially those in advanced stages of development. Why? Because we don't know which of these will actually be approved earliest or approved by their home FDA or by FDA. And also, since we foresee that different vaccines using different technology platforms will be suited for specific target groups. So we foresee that if we're going to engage vaccine developers who are approved by the FDA, we'll be using many vaccines using different technologies.
All right, Dr. Montoya, are there any other promising developments in the fight against COVID-19?
Well, in the clinical trials, for example, because we would like most of these forerunners, these advanced vaccine developers, to conduct clinical trials in the Philippines. We already had the news that the proposal submitted by Astra has also already passed through the ethics review step. So it is now forwarded to the FDA for regulatory approval. And we foresee that in the next few days, maybe the other 4 or the other 4 vaccine applications will also be reviewed favorably and will also undergo FDA regulatory approval.
All right, we're all hoping for the best. Thank you for your time, Dr. Jaime Montoya of the DOST Philippine Council for Health, Research and Development. Good evening, Doctor.